Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the GWAT Fob podcast, brought to you by Combat Outpost Robinson, which is doing great things for our veterans. And I'm your host, Jim Robinson, and today we've got a very special guest on the show, U.S. Army 101st Airborne Leader Rakkasans, Daniella Younker. Welcome to the show, Daniella.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be here with you again.
Absolutely. We tried this once before and we had some audio issues, so we're back for take number 2. Daniella is a very special guest on the show today. She's very special to me because she actually served with my son on all 3 of his deployments. She is actually deployed 4 times. 3 times to Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. And Daniella, why don't you give us a little background on you, where you grew up, because I know you grew up in a very, very small town.
I did.
It wasn't very many people in it at all. And then ended up in the military somehow. And why don't you just give us a little background there?
So I grew up in a small town in Illinois, about 30 miles south of Springfield, a little dot called Stonington. When I was a kid, it was 900 to 1,000 people. It's one of the flattest places on earth, and known for its elevator and cornfields and soybean production.
Right.
I, I, as I was growing up, I was kind of like an older kid mentally. So when I was a young teen, I knew that I didn't want to work on cars or work in a field, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did start playing volleyball and went away for college to do so, but got uncomfortable because I wasn't able to pay for it myself.
Right.
So joining the army got me out of having somebody else carry me and got me out of town and gave me a way, my first opportunity to really carve my own path. Um, when I joined, I remember it very vividly. People who know me know I have a very good memory. I went to the recruiting station in Decatur, Illinois. I said, I want to join the Army. I don't care what I do, but I don't want to be infantry. I want to do something else. And it wasn't anything that I had against infantry. It's just that that's not where I saw myself. I chose fire support specialist, which is like an infantryman for artillery.
Right.
Um, and it wasn't eye-opening in my first enlistment, but it became eye-opening later. But the Army gave me that outlet, and I couldn't take advantage of it like a lot of us do on our first enlistment. I didn't know enough, didn't have perspective enough.
Right.
And then after 2003 or 2001, I gained the perspective that I needed pretty quick, and I was like, I should have never gotten out.
Right.
So I went back in, and that's when I started deploying. I deployed in late '03, from the living room to Iraq in literally 28 days from enlistment to flight.
Okay. That's pretty quick.
I endured the car bomb in December 2003, which was the introduction that the game had changed in Iraq, that not all the enemies were organic, that imported enemies were amongst us.
Right.
Behaviors for the enemy became more apparent, more open after that event. Made it through it. Car bomb was significant. That was the deployment which my PTSD started to kick in. And you don't know that at the time, you know that later.
Oh, yeah.
I was always the kind of the smart kid, even then. When I was a kid, I was the kind of the quiet, smart kid. I guess they'd call me autistic now, but then it was just I knew stuff. Like I knew all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And I had unique perspectives that other people didn't. So 2004, we got back, trained up. We reorganized the army in 2004, so that was not fun. We went from the old style where artillery and infantry and helicopters were all organic to themselves to building combined brigade combat teams where all the elements for a deploying unit were inherent to each other. And I was a part of that transition to Fort Campbell. That was as an E4, not the greatest time to be an E4. Logistically, that's a lot of carrying stuff, a lot of inspections, a
Right.
lot of digging into containers that have not been opened for 20, 30 years.
Right.
Um, but it was good watching that transform because I was when I my first time in the military in 95, it was the old style. So I got to see both,
Right.
right? Um, and I'm sure we're going to get back to my enlistment in 95 and the people that I met along the way in
Well,
those
yeah.
first couple of years.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's me. When I discovered that it was by accident I discovered I was really good at my job.
Okay.
When I would be doing calls for fire, if nobody knows, you just take a square and divide that into 10 sections, and then you got to divide it by 10 more sections going up and down. And if you're going to be accurate, you've got to get really close to whatever's in that square. And that square will lay over a map.
Right.
Well, I could do that math very, very, very quickly, very, very, very accurately
That's
just by
great.
looking at it.
That's
And
great.
people were like, how do you do that? And like brain just does it. So like I could look at a map and after being on the hill for 20 or 30 minutes, look at a map and then look out at an impact area, even if it was a training. And I know where things are in relation to the map without looking at the map now. Like
Right.
I could literally my brain is superimposing the lines you see on a map in reality to me. So doing that job became very, very, very easy, and I was very efficient at it. And people were like, "How do you do that?" I'm like, I don't. It's just what I
That's
do.
that's an extremely important position.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you're pinned down and you're taking fire. Uh, I don't know if I told you this before or not, but we have got a new uh, board member on Outpost Robinson board of directors who was an Air Force JTAC guy.
Yeah.
So that was his job in Afghanistan was calling in
Mhm.
air support, and he was on the ground with them, and you know
Yeah.
calling in close air support. You got to be on your mark.
I got trained in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So okay, so that was your first deployment to Iraq.
That was my first deployment to Iraq.
Okay, and then you went
Um,
back again in '06.
I went back again in '06 for the super deployment, the 14 to 15 month deployment during the surge.
Right,
We were taken to Iraq, of course, by Colonel Steele, commander of the Rakkasans. I had referenced it before, who I'd met in
right,
1997.
right. And I,
As
and I was planning on bringing that up a little later, but
yeah,
since we're here, let's go ahead and get into that because Colonel Steele is the one he's in Secretary of Defense Hegseth's ear constantly, and he's guiding Pete Hegseth quite a bit. And you actually knew Colonel Steele before he was a colonel when he was a major.
yes,
So why don't you take our viewers through how it, it came to be that you two actually became friends for a while.
I mean, we knew each other. How we became friends is I was, an E4 who was willing and able to organize things and was sharp. He had taken us to Panama as part of a force representation for pre-turning over the canal. So a lot of logistics had to be organized and to move back to the U.S. And the security elements that were down there couldn't really focus on security, so we would go down, train for 30 days in the jungle, and then go take over some force representation position to plus up people so that they could do their job down there to leave.
Right.
And he was the sub commander that took that element down. I think there was like 420 of us or 430 of us all that went, but all of the 13 Foxes went. So there was 27 13 Foxes that went
Okay.
amongst this. I was one of them, and I was an E4. And so Major Steele, as a commander, didn't have like a full office. He had two E3s to be, let's say, secretaries for four officers, including himself. And those numbers don't match up very well for keeping the office organized because lieutenants typically aren't and won't clean after themselves.
Right.
And if anybody out there is a lieutenant, I'm apologizing, but I'm not sorry. So, in a bit of a tiff, Major Steele asked my boss one day at PT because he would PT with us quite often as we PT pretty hard, and and my boss told him like, no, I got a crew that can clean that office. So we went up and met him in his office, and he was in PTs. He's like, look, I just want you to take all these papers, make them into piles, organize them by like stuff, but make it sure it doesn't look like a bomb went off, and just clean it up. And then he went out and quote ran his lieutenants to death, and he did. He drove one of them to the hospital,
Oh, wow.
running like up a hill. He was not happy, but when we came back, he was super happy with the office and gave us all a handshake and a 4-day. And that's when I met him.
Nice.
He just chilled out with us and
Okay.
talked to us. And I had been putting on some muscle at that time and was good on PT. And like he had heard like Younker's pretty good at their job, like very proficient.
Okay.
And so that's how I met him. Fast forward a few years, we have our military careers. I get out of the military for a while. He stays in, of course, on his career. And then 2006, the his first day really at the unit is our ball, our formal ball. So dress blues and
Right.
everybody's there. And my wife at the time is in a gown, and we go through the receiving line, and I see him, and he shook my hand, and he noticed me then. And then, of course, he's got protocols to keep up then.
Right.
But he catches me in the serving line, and I'm holding the plate in each hand. My wife is filling the plates, and he, in the middle of that, put me in a headlock and was trying to choke me out. And was just like, "How are you, Airborne?" I'm like, "Not great right now."
Right.
And his staff were like staring at like, why is he assaulting an E4? Um, so
He sounds like
he
a character.
He is, and he kept it on. Like he kept the headlock on, and I finally said, "Sir, if you don't let me go, I'm gonna put us both in the hospital." And that's what he's like, and that's what he's pushing me. He's like, "That's what I'm talking about. That right there." And he didn't spill a drop. Like I didn't drop anything off the plates. I didn't complain about it.
Right.
I just fired back at him with strength, and
Right.
that's what he's about. Is there's a masculine strength about him that he just leans into. The man used to put his 12 or 14-year-old son in his F-250 and then strap himself to the front and jog around Fort Campbell with it. Like that's he is a through and through Georgia Bulldog offensive lineman.
Right.
He's very aggressive, but I think that there are people that hear a lot of the things that he said, and I think Hedgeth is one of them, and kind of misinterpret a lot of it.
Right.
I honestly think that his methods could be spoken differently, but
Right.
he speaks them in a voice that people are like, oh, I'm a hard charger and I'm just going to go bully everyone. You
Well,
can be a bully without saying a word.
right. That's
Like,
true. That's true. But
um,
at the same point, when you get to that rank
yeah,
and you're trying to command, you know, a shitload of soldiers,
yeah,
I can understand it from his point of view.
yeah, I agree.
So,
Um, I, I don't, I don't really know why Hedgeth does some of the things he does. I
oh,
know
I
that
don't either.
he's taken some philosophies that were, I'm not saying they are Colonel Steele, but they are reminiscent of Colonel Steele's
Right.
kind of mentality. And Colonel Steele probably has given advice, but I don't know for sure if it's like the advice to do the things that he's doing, other than
Right.
it's the mentality and the way of thinking that's very warrior driven,
Right.
very strong, very aggressive.
Yes.
And I think that Pete just really doesn't have the capacity or moral character to hold back, and
Oh, I
that's
would
where it becomes dangerous.
I would totally agree with that. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
just I
that's
just don't think he's got the ability.
yeah,
I really don't. I mean, he gets himself so hyped up and he's playing a role.
Right.
That's how I see it. He's playing
Yeah,
a role.
he's a caricature of himself, and it's
Yes.
gone a little too far.
Oh
And I
yeah,
don't think
big
there's
time.
any way for him to come back from it. Like his ego won't allow it.
No, his ego won't allow it because he'll be humiliated.
Yeah. And he should be, quite frankly.
Totally. I mean, he's done a lot of damage.
Yeah, he has.
He has done a lot of damage.
Yeah. The least of which is the reputation of this country.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And our service members.
Absolutely.
The least of which.
Absolutely.
Like,
100% agree.
Yeah.
100%.
The part that he misses is treating humans like human beings.
Oh yeah. He acts like he's got no concept of it. So yeah, we're on the same page there. So let's jump out to.
I've talked to a couple of. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish up.
I talked to Behrman.
Okay, I actually heard from him a few days ago.
Good, and I encouraged him to reach out. But
he did.
One of the things that I guess stuck out about me to people like your son was that in the face of somebody like Colonel Steele or Pete Hedgeseth, they could turn to me and say, "What's your moral compass say?"
Right.
And it was always consistent, and I wasn't afraid to share it, and I wasn't afraid to stand on it, and it was generally you could just take it as what is the most human thing to do while still accomplishing our mission. Because if you're going to stop acting like a human, that's not what this military is. Like
I would agree.
We have to maintain our humanity. So if you're struggling with that, I've got a lot that we can talk about. But if you're questioning why I would act in a humane way, there's other issues. And those are the things I would talk to with soldiers about. Like I was very humanity driven. Like, okay, so the mission in Iraq is not what the government told the American people. Okay, but the soldier's job is to execute with the time they're given to do the best they can with what they're told.
Right.
And if that means that I've got to guard some Christian family from getting murdered by terrorists, then I guard the Christian family from getting killed by terrorists.
Right, absolutely.
It has nothing to do with the weapons of mass destruction. And it's still getting something good out of me being there, that I don't have to sleep with a demon for the rest of my life.
I get it.
And those are the things, the perspective of that is where soldiers would kind of turn towards me, I guess, a little bit. And I didn't really know it at the time. I know it more now. That I'd be like, I mean, if we leave and they die, how do you feel tomorrow? Like, and then they would be like, yeah, that's not good. Even your son-in-law was one of those that was like, you know, Sergeant Younker will just give it to you straight, and I'll acknowledge that it's screwed, but we got to find some good to do here. Like you can't just focus on this is all messed up. You find something good to do. Give a kid a piece of candy. Shake somebody's hand. Do something.
I can see where that would be a huge help in that situation. So I want to thank you for giving them that advice.
Yeah. I was also the one that could also pull you to the side and say, maybe you're getting in your own way. Like maybe you have a bias that you need to look at externally. And that doesn't mean you're wrong. And if you're comfortable with it, like live it. But if you're frustrated with it, take a look at that.
I would agree with that.
You're young. You're going to have them.
Right. Absolutely.
Don't let your ego drive the car, though. Like,
well, that's true too. That's very true too. And I'm sure that you know that was one of Jimmy's problems.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
We've had our talks.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Like, the kid used to come to my house, and when he got his dog.
Right.
Brutus had issues with stairs, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, bring him over. So it took me about 11 minutes to fix Brutus, and then stairs were nothing. And he's like, you're a lifesaver. I'm like, I taught both your sons to play Dungeons and Dragons in my house.
Oh yeah. That's another thing I wanted to bring up, because on the 06 deployment, you guys used to play games to kind of kill the time when when you had downtime. So, I mean, when I found that out, I never even realized that you had that kind of free time while you was over. I know we sent a lot of stuff over there, but games was never in our thought process.
You get some, and you want to maximize it. Like you don't just want to lay in your rack.
Oh yeah.
So when you settled into a solid rotation and everybody was proficient, you would have a full day a lot of the times, and sometimes too, just depending on how it's scheduled out. Because if you were going to do an early morning patrol on a Thursday and you got off patrol Tuesday afternoon, they're not sending you out Wednesday because it's already filled by two other units.
Right.
It just works out that way. And then if you did, a patrol and you got back at 4 o'clock in the morning and you got to take tower guard 6 o'clock that night, you got all day and you're still awake. Like we're all young and, you take your nap and then you're good to go. Like
Right.
you're not sleeping for 8 hours to get in a tower for 12. Like I didn't.
Right.
Like, um, so there were just hours here and there that you'd nitpick and you'd play for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and somebody would run and get chow and bring it to you, so you'd have that full hour and
Nice.
make up what you can.
Right.
Other guys were playing cards for that same amount of time. It's just,
Right.
Mhm.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, did you guys ever get a chance to play games and stuff with the kids when you was out on patrol?
So one of the games that I don't know if it's a game, hypnotizing chickens. Um, young kids were amazing at catching them, and if they
Hmm.
found out that you knew how to hypnotize them, you'd have 6 or 7 kids at a time coming up to you to try and
I'm sure.
hypnotize the chicken. Um, so that was something that would occupy them, and people can think of it what you will, but like some people were very nervous, even guys on our patrol would be very nervous about having all these kids around, but as far as like shielding yourself from the local population, the kids were the way to go. Like
Right.
integrate with them. And if you make an impression, you're making an impression 10 years down the road.
Oh
Like
yeah. Right.
it's integral to what we want to do here to stay out.
Right.
Like and it keeps any disgruntled local people from really digging into a hard line at that moment because they don't want to disrupt their community by and large.
Right.
And if we do get attacked, we typically know it's not a local person. Like, and as sad as that is, you have a litmus there because the local people aren't attacking their children.
Right.
And if you go into an area and there aren't any children, something is afoot. Like
Right.
there is a litmus test here. It's not why we're doing it, but it is a litmus test that's available, so you use it.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But if we have a big meeting and there's 20 kids just hanging out around the trucks, I'd rather them to be there because
Yeah.
I can see over their head.
Right.
I'm not putting them in danger because this is their country.
Right.
Like I'm
It's,
not
it's it's their village, whatever.
right.
Yeah.
And then if you want to integrate with the local populace, if you make the kids happy, that has longer lasting impressions
I'm sure
on
it
the
does.
full population.
Yes. I could
Um,
see where it would have an influence over their mothers,
right,
which it's in turn is going to talk to their fathers
right.
and their uncles or whatever. So
Mhm.
I could totally see where that would be a huge benefit for you.
Because if you have a foreign actor come in and say, well, the Americans are endangering their children, the mother's
Right.
like, the Americans showed my child how to hypnotize their chicken. Like, I'm not sure where you're getting their trying to target my child.
Right.
Like, there
Right.
is this ridiculous check when the kid comes back and says, Mom, look, look, look. Because Iraq kids do that too. Or they gave me a pencil, or they gave
Right.
me this plastic toy that we got from a VFW box. Like,
Right.
that stuff does have measure to counter other narratives.
Hmm.
Whether you intended it or not, you're just giving the kid the toy.
Right.
But there is a psychological ploy there because the kid remembers, and it's fond, he shares the fondness.
Right.
That's all that's happening. That's just humanity.
Yes.
Like, once again, I come back to that. That's just
Yeah.
humans interacting with humans, not on a religious level, not on a
Right.
political level. I want to keep them as safe as I can, too. We're in a meeting to build them a school for crying out loud.
Right.
And I'm not in there, so I got to do what best I can with the time I'm given. And these
Right.
kids are here. If I shoo them away, that tells them one narrative. It tells the population something's afoot.
Right.
It tells the enemy something. If
Yep.
I let them stay and I entertain them by hypnotizing a chicken or two, well, I put smiles on some kids' faces. They're going to
Right.
remember that. They're going
Right.
to pass that little skill on if they paid attention.
Absolutely.
And then if we get a school, bonus. Like,
Yeah.
so those are the things that I don't know, I tried to focus on and
That's great.
weave my way through as best I could.
Okay. And so you was back over again in 2008, but in a different area of the country.
2008, the country was a little bit different. I was in
Right.
a different area. I was
Right.
in southwest Baghdad in Sadr al-Yusufiyah.
Right.
Um, Jimmy at the time was on scouts, so I only saw him
Yes.
like 4 or 5 times as he would wander through. He actually vied for me to when I got healthy. I'd had a shoulder impingement that was pretty bad when I got there. He actually asked if I could travel with the scouts just because
Oh, cool.
they knew I could do it and they would wanted the extra set of eyes for indirect fire for a couple
Right.
of things.
Right.
But the job that I was doing was very unique. Not that it was unique, but it was unique in the gains that I had. So I got put in the headquarters element to kind of heal my shoulder and get out of kicking doors for a while,
Right.
um, which I appreciated. Our commander at the time, the company commander, was a 13 series, 13 Alpha, and wanted me in the talk because of my skill set. And he was isolated. He was at a very long range for larger weapon systems, really didn't have a good temperature check of what was going to go on. And right across the river is the southern tip of the Iron Triangle. So
Right.
there's some concern there. We had a mortar system on the base with 135 people, and he just felt nervous about it, especially if he's 13. You want to do the job better than an 11.
Oh,
There's an
yeah.
ego there.
Right. Right.
So he put me in the headquarters to operate the element for the administration and to monitor the indirect calls for fire because I had the map. Like the map is there. We're in a very small house. I'm right next to the mortar position. Their computer is in there. The mortar's out front. So it was all coherent for the
Right.
indirect cell of our headquarters. I met Adam Omler, Ohio, Rocky River, Ohio resident up there in Cleveland area.
Okay.
He was a disgruntled 11 Bravo trying to do an admin job, and I had to I had to walk him into, look, if you don't want to do this, you need to get really good at it
Right.
because if you're going to prove that you can suck at something, they're just going to think you suck at everything.
Right.
So I taught him how to use Excel and I taught him how to build files and construct emails and build templates and I taught him some admin stuff and he got really proficient at it. And then he started, I'm like, and if you just enjoy it a little bit, you'll gain that leverage you want and then they'll ask. And he did. And people go on leave and he's like, hey, can I jump on a patrol? And they're like, yeah, sure, grab your gear.
Cool.
And then he'd ask me, like, is it cool? Like, yeah, go for it. It's like,
Right.
because you're doing the things we need you to do. Like, it wasn't like I had a lot of rank, but I had respect, I guess.
Right.
And a lot of, even our whole headquarters element appreciated how I integrated skill sets that these soldiers didn't have in order to do a job they didn't want to do and still
Right.
made it them motivated enough to get something out of it personally.
Right.
And Adam, I've talked to him, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. When I lived up in Cleveland, I talked to him, I don't know, for about 2 years. He still tells people, like, no, I learned all the stuff I needed for college from Sergeant Younker in Iraq. Like,
That's
taught
great.
me, like, but one of the unique things, experiences, people like to hear about those. So one of the unique things that happened in that deployment was me calling for fire from inside the talk through another 13 Fox spotting and making adjustments without seeing anything because I could do that. And there was also instances where I helped the mortar team make corrections on their ballistic computer to make things work safely, like
Right.
within regulation, within all the stuff we needed to. And the one that probably stands out is we had a mission at night to get a high value target that was finally back in the area. The wind was low, but the direction was poor and the visibility wasn't great. So we needed the illume because there was no natural illumination.
Right.
And the wind was going to complicate some things with where the illumination was going to land. There really wasn't a good safe approach to the building for the squad that was going in, and it was only going to be
Okay.
one squad. And they called me from sleep to come down and see. Like the commander was like, I guess, summoned me. He was like, fix this problem. So the mortar ballistic computer kept saying that the mortar canister, a 33-pound piece of steel, is going to land on these guys while they're trying to get into the house, and that's not great. We can't
Right.
mitigate that risk very well.
Right.
Another approach wouldn't allow the vehicles to be in play, so that's a no-go because there's a riverbed back there you can't cross. You got to go in from one angle.
Right.
And he wanted me to fix the problem, and I asked them to put some information in their ballistic computer, and they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Could you just put in this azimuth and angle of fire?" And they're like, "Well, that's too low." And I'm like, "It's not too low. It's just not what you normally do."
Right.
And I was like, "Now tell me where that's going to resolve." And they did, and I looked at the map, and I was like, "Okay, so what if we take the charges down to 1/3 of that?" And they did that, and it would put the trajectory of a normal round on the northern edge of the house, meaning the canisters are going to either hit the house or go long of the house. But if you're up next to the house deflects anything coming down. It's not going to come straight down.
Right.
It's coming at an angle.
Right.
And because I took the mortar from this to get there and I made it like this, I'm increasing that angle of landing also, meaning the house shadow essentially gets longer, meaning you have a larger, safer area up next to the house.
Right.
And I was like, this is mitigated. If we fire that data and every Illume round goes out on that data, we don't change the angle of fire up, then the house will eat some of those canisters, and the others are going to land in the field out to your left side as you approach the house. And I told that to the lieutenant who's going to lead it in, and
Right.
our commander looked at him and said, "Told you."
That's
So
great.
this is custom data to mitigate a specific risk with a
Right.
specific weapon system
Right.
on the fly from inside the talk. It took me about 9 minutes. And they were like, what? I'm like, so I was like, now the key is the, the ground commander, that lieutenant, has to decide, does this mitigate it enough for you to go? Because now you have to fight your instinct. You've got to ride the wall.
Right.
Like, and firefights in this area are not common. Like it's not, we don't think there's going to be a firefight. So like you now have to accept the risk as the ground force. Are you willing to ride the wall this time? Because you're not trained to do that. You
Right.
need to have an arm's length away from this time you're going to want to be up next to the wall. And I told the lieutenant, I said, look, sir, when the first canister hits the field, you guys are going to pucker. But I promise you, this house is going to block them, and the
Right.
rest are going to land out to your left. But you're going to hear it. You're going to hear the whoosh, 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 whoosh thunk.
Right.
But stay up next to the house. Stay in the shadow of the house. You're fine. He's like, no, I trust you. Like he's like, this has been amazing. So he went, and we did get the guy. And
Good.
they came back and was like, that was the most surreal thing ever. They're like, literally, what you described was going to happen happened exactly. They heard three of them hit the house. The rest landed in the field. Nobody got hurt.
That's
We had a loom the
amazing.
whole time. And that's when people were like, so like you really do know what you're doing. I'm like, I guess.
Well, let's hope so. Oh,
I
that's
had to get out of
amazing.
bed to do it. Like I better make my mark.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you got back from that deployment. That was your third deployment.
That was my third. Yeah,
And you ended up on your fourth deployment over in Afghanistan.
I did.
And that one got cut short.
It did.
Let's walk through that because that's your PTSD really kicked in on that deployment.
It was continuing to get worse over the
Yes.
years. And then before I went, there was this warning shot for mental health of like, you really do have a pre-diagnosis for PTSD. You've had to be treated for sleep issues and depression. And like, yeah,
Right.
I know, but my job is to go, and I'm being real about it. I'll tell the chain of command like this is where we're at, but I'm going to go until I can't be there anymore, and then
Right.
I'll tell you like, hey, I've had it, no matter what it is. Like I'm not gonna be suicidal about it. I'm not gonna do that, but I will say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be here.
Right.
So everybody was good with that. I did tell the chain of command before we went. I told my fire's chain of command and the brigade chain of command. Everybody knew, but I was filling a specific role again in this deployment that was unique. That I went to school for 3 months and burned through energy trying to learn. Um, and I went, and I was good on the deployment. I had to write a program to run electronic warfare. I had to learn how to be up in the echelons within the high levels of oxygen and watch things happen and hear things happen. And I was one of the people who kind of ridiculed people who did that, and I didn't understand how difficult it was to be unable to directly impact what's going on. Like, and to be providing information and direction to those who are, it's not as that comfortable as you think it is. Mentally, it's there's some wear and tear that I didn't
Oh,
count on.
I could totally understand that. I
Um,
mean, if you're human at all and you're thinking about the consequences of what you're getting ready to do, it has to take a mental toll on you.
and if you're on the ground, you have less time to think about the consequences and
Oh
more
yeah,
time to commit to
absolutely,
the act. But if you're
absolutely.
sitting up at a brigade talk, and this isn't trying to get, like sympathy or anything, but just recognition of like, I experienced in real time the difference between the two. I have more than enough time to sit there and be ready and ready and ready, and I don't get to commit to the act and go.
Right, right,
And I got to sit with that. And that's different. Am I saying it's woe is me? No, I'm not. But it's completely different and it's legitimately heavy to, and I think that that's probably shared by a lot of us who got
oh yeah,
moved up that didn't really, I don't know or respect that element of it. And it was eye-opening. Ultimately, what happened to me is I went home on leave and I came back from leave. And while I was on leave, I got another kid that I knew that I'd met in '06 or in the deployment in '08. Matthew Weicker had been killed, and I didn't know that until I got back, and his face is on the wall, and I'm like, what happened? And
right,
then this vacuum of power just gets sucked out of you 'cause the wound's already there.
right,
And I declined after that. I I started losing sleep. Work became a priority because it was the safest thing I could do. Sleep wasn't safe. Being alone wasn't safe. Not that I was a danger to myself. It just didn't. And you just had this little bits of something's happening. I'm not able to interact with it. So you want to be where you can interact with it.
right.
That's not great. Um,
No,
and it's taken a toll. So
yeah. And at one point, you had gotten so bad that you were having seizures and everything else while you were sleeping, and they actually assigned a couple of people to watch over you while you was sleeping.
yeah, I would have night terrors so
Yeah,
bad, I would just shake and cry, and I'd wake up in the middle of that because when it would start, I wouldn't be awake. I, the best term I use is trapped in a nightmare. Some of them were reliving moments that were then exaggerated.
right,
Some of them were unresolved fears, all pertaining to deployments and all things that were around the stuck point of PTSD. They just didn't take the time to dig into. You didn't know you need to. Like you just don't feel great or you're tired.
right,
And then whenever I finally admitted it, was the day I will remember forever. I knew it was coming. I stayed awake the night before. I was on my computer, probably 10:45 at night. Our fire support officer, Major Smith, came in and was like, working late tonight. And I was just like, yeah, I can get this ready. I had a meeting the next morning and I just BS'd him that I was getting it ready, which I kind of was, but mostly I was just not going to my room where the terror would start.
right,
The next morning I came in and I beat him in and he was kind of clued in at that point because he knew I was there at 11 and I'm there at 6:30 and he's already been at the gym and he knew I wasn't because it's only one gym.
right,
And he's like, "You doing okay?" I'm like, I'm good." And I had just started my computer and I was watching it start up and I remember my brain said, "This is taking too long. We're done here." And I was just like inhumanely mad. My humanity had depleted, and and then I kind of sat in that moment for a couple of seconds, staring at my weapon and feeling all this anger that came from nothing. And I was like, whoa, what is that? Like, I didn't know,
Right.
but I knew I hadn't been sleeping. I knew that I was exhausted, and I knew I had to tell somebody, like, I'm not fit right now. Like,
Right.
I have to tell. So I walked into his office and closed the door. I didn't ask. And I was like, I told you guys that if anything happened during the deployment, that I would let you know, and I'm letting you know. Like, I haven't really slept for more than 2 or 3 hours in the last 2 or 3 weeks in a consistent basis. Work becomes the protective thing, and I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not getting better, and I can't
Right.
resolve it. So that started my process to come home. Um, and it was terrifying being in your own mind in a
Right.
way, and not able to really control a lot of it. Like, literally, your ability to think gets shut off, and
Right.
you're just in this blind emotion.
And in one instance, one of the guys that was assigned to watch over you while you were sleeping, he tapped out after one night with you.
Yeah,
So
he
that that
watched.
that that tells me something right there.
Yeah, he was assigned to watch me because just it was protocol. They'd already taken, the protective measures so that I can't hurt anybody, and I would. That was not part of it. It's just following what you need to. He has to sleep, in a rack near me and see me. And I guess at some time in the night, I started shaking and crying violently, and he watched me just decompensate from a functioning human being into this ball of uncontrolled humanity. And he went and got our boss and was like, I can't do this. Like, he physically got ill. He told me that a couple days later, like, the reason he left that night was he literally went outside and vomited, and could only picture that that's what he'd end up, and his son has to witness it, and that's what he was
Right.
afraid of,
Right.
because it brought the reality for real into real time observation, and that was one of about 8 or 9 episodes until I got out over the next 6 or 7 days. That,
Okay.
like, everybody got to witness it that watched me, and I that was embarrassing, but it's not something I wanted to have happen. Like, I don't
Oh,
remember
absolutely
those.
not. Nobody wants it.
Thankfully, I don't actually remember those. I'd remember waking up and have been crying and I was upset, but I didn't know what had preceded it.
Right.
And then they would be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. Like, this is normal." Like,
Oh Lord, that's terrible.
trying.
Right. Right. So that that led up to you being sent back home in the
I got
middle of
medically evacuated August
right.
8th,
Right.
2010.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's the day I got back to Campbell. I left Campbell, or I left Salerno, I think on the 5th or 6th, in the middle of the afternoon.
Okay.
I spent a night at Andrews. I spent a night in Ramstein. I spent a couple hours at Scott Air Force Base and was back at Campbell on the 10th. And then started in warrior transition to see what we were going to do. My goal was to get healthy. It was. It
Oh
was.
yeah, I would hope so.
Like,
Yeah.
I can overcome this. I can get better. I can get back. I can. They're going to give me 4 or 5 months. I'll be right back at it. And that was like my track. That was my mentality. I was working towards that, and then I had an appointment with my primary care physician, who was a former Special Forces
Okay.
operator
All right.
who'd went to PA school, and he had a lot of black bracelets this day. He wore all
Right.
of them.
Right.
He handed me a cigar and a cup of coffee and took his jacket off and said, "Let's go talk." And he talked to me about, like, when you went on the deployment, you were probably 80% of what you would be at 100. And then you took this hit, and I might be able to get you 60% back to where you were. And then you're looking at getting jerked out of another deployment and having to do this again because the
Right.
pattern is there. You're progressing towards this just becoming who you are. So he's like, we can try to get you back to that 60%, but we're never going to get you to 100. And he's like, I don't think we're going to get close to where you were before you went.
Oh, wow.
Because if you just go expose yourself again, the same things come back because you're just re-exposing the
Well,
exact
yeah, well,
same
yeah,
trigger.
exactly. And, the triggers are going to be there.
Right.
They're
So he's
not
like,
going away.
and he wasn't trying to talk me into anything or out of anything. He was just explaining his perspective
Right,
from his deployments that he had
right,
already done.
right,
Like, and all the black bracelets he were people he was with.
right,
Like, this is not somebody who doesn't know. And I was like, okay. So that day I had to decide whether or not I wanted to continue recovery or allow a med board basically to be submitted.
right,
And he was good with either. And I was like, look, here's what we'll do. You can submit the med board. I will go with whatever the med board says, meaning if they say that I'm fit, then we need to get to work.
oh,
And in
yeah,
the meantime, we're going to get to work. And I'm going to do everything I can to get myself better. And he
right,
was like, deal, we'll do that. And that set better with him because it was more realistic.
right,
And he could tell I was willing to accept the decision. If they say, no, this person can no longer deploy, great. I'm retired. I can accept it. I did what I could.
right,
I didn't opt out of anything. I didn't chicken out of anything. And I worked my tail off in the meantime to get ready to go back to work.
right,
The med board came through. I never appealed it. It was already, yes, you're done. You have to step away from this. You've had
right,
enough.
right.
That's what I
So,
did.
and that had to be devastating.
I I miss it a lot.
I'm sure you do.
And it sucked the wind out of me.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm also a person that I commit. Like I wasn't going to sit there and allow myself to decompensate over it because I'd committed that I'm taking this decision.
right,
And I honestly didn't have an expectation on their decision. I didn't. I was going to do the work to get back to work. And if it was, you're going to retire, then that's what I'm going to take. So I committed to that.
right,
And I'd already recognized the damage. I'd had to tell my wife, like, I didn't think anybody should be married to me at that time. I had lost bits of my humanity and would just have these anger swells that come from
right.
nothing.
And I'm
And I
sure you
didn't,
weren't alone in that because I'm sure a lot of the other guys and gals that came back had the same issues.
I did some good in Warrior Transition Battalion. They put me in charge. I was a staff sergeant at the time of working out some more details with CIF, um, with guys that would come back with their gear completely stained with biohazard, and they
Right.
were getting charged for it. Their vest is covered in blood, or they didn't come back at all, and their vest did, and they were trumping up charges on CIF issues. So I
That's
went to work.
crazy.
Yeah, it is. It was, and they were like, and the warrior transition commander was like, so that lieutenant colonel is receiving all this, and he's also getting like notification that this soldier owes money, and he's like, what am I? How do I resolve this? So we put me in charge. At that time, I'd been on Campbell since 2003, and I knew a bunch of people. And I went to work, and I went to CIF, and I chit chatted with retired sergeant majors about where this issue started and why it's persisting, and got some attention and some perspective on it, and figured out a system. Went to General Codes, got a signature, and ended the whole screwed up system,
That's good.
and got soldiers some money back, stopped the over need for paperwork ended almost
Right.
immediately. So I made it once again. I was in a position you got to do with what you can. While my career's ending, I still got a chance to go out working, like doing something.
Right.
Um, During that time, um, I had a friend come back from Afghanistan, and it was his fourth deployment. And Chris had already had a couple of significant traumatic brain injuries and had another one in Afghanistan that was a front back inside a large truck and hit his helmet, hit the back of his helmet, hit the front of his helmet again in a rollover. And I knew Chris, since 2005. And when I met Chris in 2010, when he got assigned to our squad, he was a different person in his eyes. Like
Oh,
his
I'm sure.
his personality had depleted.
Hmm.
and I kind of buddied up to him, so we were buddies and we were same rank, and Chris was less capable than he was, and there was a distinct difference in his mannerisms, and I was worried. Um, what stood out to me was that he would get emotional about things that required no emotion. We went fishing. He got in my truck. He put down a 32-ounce Gatorade and a 32-ounce bottle of water. About 5 minutes later, he's crying because he can't decide whether he's supposed to drink water or whether he's supposed to drink Gatorade. And he literally versed it that way. And I was like, okay, well, that's not a really good way to use that verbiage.
Right.
I made an appointment for myself with a different mental health provider than mine on a whim to just ask them about Chris.
Right.
And who I got assigned to when I got through all the gates was the person who specialized in our SOAR pilots if they had a hard landing. So he was there specifically for the 160th pilots. When they would go into a hard landing situation, he would monitor them and order all the tests to
Right.
evaluate their traumatic brain injury. The most common helicopter pilot injury is front back head impact. The back of their helmet is not solid to the
Right.
front. There is a split, and their traumatic brain injuries are typically front and back, not side to side, because they don't usually bang into each other or the side
Right.
window. So it was fortuitous that this was the person I was talking to, and I described the symptoms. He's like, I know what's wrong. And he asked me about the tests. Now, as an E6 in Warrior Transition Battalion, as a squad leader and doing this stuff for CIF, I had access to everybody's stuff and I was operating under HIPAA. So I had
Right.
access to the file, and I'm like, they have not done that test. So he took Chris at my request, without Chris knowing, without the chain of command, without an officer getting in the way, and scheduled him for a CT scan and got that CT scan and found the injuries in between the occipital and frontal lobe, which is typically seen in aircraft pilots, but they don't usually look for it in infantrymen.
Right.
And it's not that the front of the frontal lobe was hurt so much. That happens. It's the split between the two where the seams are, there's scar tissue that built up there. And that's where the judgment and personality shift had happened, is he had injured that and no one had looked.
Right.
And that changed the trajectory of Chris's remaining days in the military, because he was also medically retired eventually. But that diagnosis forced them to med board rather than
Right.
try and force through recovery.
Right.
It changed that direction, and as far as I would say, it worked out better because he's a lot better now,
That's
and I
great.
talked to him for years after. One of the biggest problems he was having during that time is if he'd get into a stressful situation, it would feel like his head was on fire. So he had got issued a halo that cools his head down, and he knew what was wrong with him at that point too. That's the other part, is like,
Well, that's a big help right there.
right. But I was the one, I didn't have, it wasn't my role. It was just, this bothers me and I don't like the answer I'm getting. Like,
Right. Right.
that's it. Like, I don't like the answer I'm getting. So I went and interfered,
Right.
like stuck my nose in it.
I know that I saw a big difference in Jimmy between his first deployment and his second deployment. And when he came on mid-tour uh, from Afghanistan, he was just a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So uh, I
I,
got a little bit of an idea of what you're saying.
yeah, I imagine you do.
Yeah,
Um,
because
I,
I saw it.
yeah, I remember Jimmy was a very good friend of mine. Like we did not hang out enough. Um, but whenever something would happen, if he wasn't reaching out to you, he was probably in my upstairs room, like chilling out with me and just
Right.
kind of getting some older brother type of advice or fatherly advice, or just screwing off, because we could just do that too. We could just pull
Right.
out D&D and just like screw it, like, um, and I remember a few days before we left for Afghanistan, he was in my house and told him those fateful words of like, see you when we get back. And then I remember the 29th, because I was driving to an appointment, and I heard it on the radio, and time stopped for me. Like it stopped for 2 hours at Clarksville PD. Clarksville PD
Right.
pulled me over while I was pulled over, came up to the window and just kind of was like, take your time, and walked back to his car and sat there until I left. But
Right.
I was in uniform on my way to a mental health appointment. Um, it was a bad day for me. Like, and I can't imagine how it was for everybody else, but I remember that. The day that I got stuck in. Like, I just, that one was hard. The hardest one. Of the 39 that I was there for, that's the hardest one.
Wow.
I didn't tell you last time, but when I got married in 2019 in Vegas, we had a memorial table for Jimmy at the
I
wedding.
did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
We had everybody's name on it, but the name plate on it
Right.
was per his invitation, that, and then had his beer on there, and Maggiano's made it up really nice for us. And
Cool. I did not know that. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah. I still worry about everybody that was there.
Yeah,
I do.
me too.
I try to, keep up with them and talk to them, but, they've all gone on and started their own families and everything. So there's only a few of them that I still keep in contact with. And, I was really shocked and surprised to hear about Guzner.
Yeah,
So,
it comes on so fast,
yes,
and that commitment to act is so driven.
yes,
And that's those two things marrying up at the wrong time from the wrong events
right,
just does it in.
yeah,
I guess this is like advice that I've taken other people on. I've talked to people, not even veterans, just generalized people. I've coached them on addiction. I've coached them on alcoholism. I've coached them on PTSD. PTSD has to become your number one thing if you have it. You have to do the double check that day and take a measure of how you are.
right,
And some days it's not worth toughing it through. Some days it's just worth getting on the PlayStation and staying there,
right.
and
Whatever you got to do.
whatever you have to do to not expose yourself. It's not avoidance, it's
Right,
self-care.
right,
And it becomes avoidance the next day if there's things that have to get done and you're not doing them.
yeah,
But if it just is going to be off that day, give the day away. It's just not worth it.
right,
But if you lose sight of that, this thing will sneak up on you and it will stab you in ways you didn't know it could reach.
right,
And that's the dangerous part, is that you think you're good. And the minute you start living like you think you're good and you forget about it,
right.
here it comes.
I understand.
And that's the same thing I tell people about alcoholism. It's like you can't say you're not a drinker.
Right.
Just say you have to just go with, I'm an alcoholic and
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't drink.
right, right,
Keep it in perspective. Keep it there.
yeah,
Watch it. Look at it. It's
right,
okay. It's fine.
yeah. I mean, I've worked with some veterans that's attempted to take their lives. Uh, they just didn't follow through with it. I've got a very good friend that actually lives down in Tampa. He's a retired Green Beret lieutenant colonel, and he found himself in a closet at home with a 45 in his mouth, and he came to his senses because he didn't want his wife and kids to come home and find him.
Right.
And went to AA after that, got sober. He's now traveling around doing TED Talks and, doing guest speaking acts and stuff. And he got into storytelling, and he's written a couple of plays. He's written several books. In fact, he just started a play called 11 Days, and it's all about Operation Pineapple, which he started to evac his interpreters out of Afghanistan during the withdrawal.
I think I've heard that name passed
Yeah.
around
Oh, yeah.
someplace.
Well, he's testified before Congress and the Department of Defense several times in the last couple of years. So
My signature's on a couple of letters.
Great guy. Great guy. So, okay. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. At at at,
You-
at what point did you discover that you were trans?
I didn't know I was trans because I didn't know it was trans when I was
Okay.
younger.
Okay.
So I didn't really even put two and together, buried it under a lot of denial, buried it under a lot of ability to just overcome things
Right.
and go through life and focus on what's important now and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
2023, life was going pretty well. I had won a scholarship to become employed with the DoD with a degree in
Nice.
cybersecurity.
Nice.
I was going to be assigned to Florida to work. That's why I live here. And they paid for school. All I had to do was pass with B's. During my internship in May of 2023, it occurred to me about halfway through the internship that when I went back to school for the last 6 months that I had, from starting in August till December when I would graduate, if I didn't show up for class, I would still carry a B average. And I was like, this is it. Like I'm back. Like I'm gonna have the ability to be employed by the government again and get my other federal retirement finished out. So
Right. Right.
after 14 years and 6 months or whatever, I can finish that out. I'm gonna have a solid income. I can rebuild myself. That's how I went into that. And about a week later, I it was just like riding high on all this kind of personal security and self-investment.
Oh yeah.
And the
Absolutely.
gender
Had to feel good.
dysphoria, yeah, and the gender dysphoria hit on a Thursday night, like I got hit by a car, and I was like, why is this happening now? Because I had felt it when I was a kid many times.
Yeah.
When I was a kid in the 80s,
Right.
there was no word for it. There was nobody talking about it. And I'm from a
That's
town
true. That's true.
so far removed from those kinds of conversations that people don't talk about it. It's just not
Right.
there. There's not enough people to talk about it.
Right.
So it's not the first time I'd felt it, but this is the time which I've got more knowledge, more maturity, and I start looking into it and I'm like, no, that's not what it is. So I got guidance to go off my antidepressant. I changed my schedule. I did all these things to still stay in denial, and it didn't go away. And usually it would go away.
Right.
If it hit on a Thursday, usually by Saturday night, like I'm just normal again, and there's not this feeling lingering. And it progressed into like an actual like I really am not comfortable like living like this. This is
Right.
like there's a big thing that's missing that's not fulfilled, and I I was still in denial. Like, but I did go ahead and make the appointment about a week and a half later for when I got back to California to my care team. Um, and I only did that because I'm not going to establish VA care in Florida for 2 weeks. Like, there's like,
Right.
so I held out and lived with it. It isn't really a fair term, but like it was there the whole time. I finished out the 8 weeks. Drove back across the country. About a week later, went to my appointment, discussed it, got an intake with that provider, and
Right.
then for the next 3 weeks, kind of went back and forth with it and learned a lot more about it from stuff that I was provided because I'm a very good researcher, reader myself.
Hmm.
Being able to discuss things, so now you're opening up the conversation, and a lot of things started falling into place. But I was still like, there has to be an alternative. And on that third week, she flipped it on me. She says, after we did our kind of summary from last week, she's like, so this week we're going to do something different. And I'm like, oh, good. And she's like, this week we're going to take the perspective that you're right and you do have gender dysphoria. What would you do about that? And that was eye-opening
I'm sure it
because
was.
she's like, what you've learned about others, what would you do about it? So like you've learned that it even the admission and stopping denial relieves some of the tension you're feeling.
Hmm.
And is there an acceptance or is there rejection with that? So like if I took on the mindset that I had it, that was me, and that it was possible that this one kid from a town of 700 people is the one, how does that make me feel? And it wasn't rejection. Like there was a level of acceptance that was like, this makes a lot more sense about a lot of things. I was always able, as we've been talking about, to process things on a more humane, emotional level than a aggressive resolution level,
Right.
emotions. I was always easy to talk to for people. I had dark moments when I was a kid where I wanted to wear and play with things that were girls. I wanted to be treated like a girl, but you can't say that in 1986
Exactly.
because who's going to hear you?
Right.
Um, so like talking through that, there was this relief and there was this weight that fell off and this comfort that settled in of like, this is real, like very real.
Right.
So then it's a matter, this is where people get confused. Like, okay, so you have gender dysphoria. That's fine. Do you do anything about it or not? Is the secondary piece of that. And that is the choice.
That's true. Right.
I didn't choose to have this as far back as 7 years old.
No. No.
But
It's not. It's not a choice.
what stopped was it going away. Like
Right.
I used to be able to do the things I was going to do and it was gone. This is not working. I was going to work every day at 5 o'clock. I'm going to the gym. I'm living a life up down here in Florida for this internship. I
Right.
drive across the country. It didn't change
Right.
until I got the relief of saying that could be me.
Right.
And I don't know that I want to live the rest of my life not or just ignoring it or trying to make it go, trying to force it to go away like it
Right.
always has before.
Right.
So the decision was, I made the decision that like, I think that I have to go through with this because if I don't, regret is going to be principled on the things you didn't do. Like you didn't explore this piece of your life that it didn't just show up. Like
I
it's
agree.
been there.
I agree.
You've suppressed it. You've learned to live around it. You've learned to just ignore it. You've learned to become a soldier, which completely wipes out your interest in. There was no
Right.
interest in being a man. It was just do your effing job and
Exactly.
do it well.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Like learn how to jump out of a plane, overcome your fear of heights,
Right.
learn how to rappel.
Yeah.
Um, these things overrid all of that, and now when I thought back in those appointments and talking to her, it would always crop up when I felt the safest and most comforted. When things weren't in turmoil in my childhood, that's when it would be the strongest.
Okay.
And then this happened when I was most secure and safe in my future and in my life, and then it cropped up, and it still hasn't gone away. I've gone through turmoil now, and it doesn't go away. I don't.
Okay.
It's
Well,
been
that tells you something right there.
like that's. I measure it. Like I get it. I understand people's hesitation to believe it, but like I'm living it, and
Right.
it wasn't for some other thing other than to this energy that was inside that had never had a chance to get out, driving me with desires and wants that I couldn't achieve because of how I was raised.
Right.
Like that's it. Like had I been born genetically female, then a lot of those things would have been fulfilled,
Right.
but they weren't because I wasn't.
Right.
So trying to deny that from what I've learned about PTSD is dangerous because it will make you go to dark places. It will make you not want to be around because you're not authentic and you
Right.
know you're not
Right.
underneath. Even if everybody loves you, even if everybody accepts you for who you are, you're hiding this thing underneath
Right.
that's slowly eating and eroding something else, and you're
Right.
compromising your happiness and your future over it. And too many trans people have already been lost because they got completely compromised and taken over.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just reality. Like you
Yeah.
can't deny it.
And then you, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you told me at one time that you figured out a way to deal with stuff like that without
Yeah.
all the medications and stuff.
Yeah.
Give
Oh,
us give us a little insight on that, because I know some people that have been looking forward to seeing this episode because of what you got to say.
so the first thing was I think it's extremely noble and important to make your family first. And if you're married and you have PTSD, I understand that.
Right.
But if you have PTSD, the reality is the PTSD can override all that and you don't get a vote. You might most of the time, but that one day isn't worth it.
Right.
And if you could just check in with yourself and when you wake up or if you start to feel it, look at your spouse and say, I don't know about today. Your family will understand. You're not sliding the responsibility over on them. You're
Right.
just taking your piece and reducing it for a few hours or a day because it's better for you and the family in the end. Long term game, not this moment game.
Right.
Give up the day of taking the trash out. Your wife's going to be fine.
Right.
She's not going to, she's not, if that's the straw that breaks the back, there was other things there. But if you need to take that day, you've got to learn to take that day. I had to. Like, and I've told other people, like, PTSD has to be number one.
Right.
One alpha and one B can then become the family. But you've got to do that check in because if you're not good, they're not good.
Right.
The second thing was I became a student of PTSD. I studied it. I studied it to analyze it. I studied case study after case study after case study. And I requested more and more and more as I wanted to know about what I call every flavor or mechanism of control that was lost,
Right.
whether it was a train wreck, helicopter crash, plane crash, where it was a mass casualty, where it was an individual, sexual assault survivals, children who survive sexual assault and have PTSD, domestic abuse. I studied all of them. And I studied war, World War II, and Korea, and Vietnam. A lot in Vietnam. There's plenty
Right.
of data.
Oh yeah.
And I read about them. And I'd read the case studies. I'd read the diagnosis. I'd read all of this stuff. And I'd take pieces of that and say, well, that's something I do go through. And all the while, your brain is learning about what is happening when it tries to shut itself off to be angry
Right.
and depressed, or in this moment that you don't have control. And what you learn is, what I learned was, in its basic form, your limbic system is an on-off switch, and it's efficient at what it does, but that doesn't make it good at what it does. It is a sensor to tell you whether or not things are in control, safe, or not in control, not safe.
Right.
It does not have the ability to interpret past that. And it can change anything into the other one quickly. When it gets fully engaged, or you become fully triggered, it can shut off your access to your judgment and try to take over systems that has no business running.
Right.
This is a Labrador Retriever that's trying to drive a train through your head, and it doesn't know where it's going or why. And the best way I learned that was when I had a service animal. Getting control of the animal satisfies this limbic system's need for control.
I've never heard it put that way.
So if I'm in a crowd and people are bumping into me and I was dumb for being in this situation in the first place, or
Right.
I thought I was good.
Right.
And I'm starting to lose my crap. Joey would then stop minding me in a way. He would start pulling against me, which he's trained not to do. And he was an A+ service animal.
Yeah.
He didn't do that unless he meant to do it.
Right.
Well, immediately the limbic system is mad at the dog. The crowd has become secondary because the dog is what's ticking me off because he's right there and he's connected to me.
Right.
Well, now our training isn't lost in the limbic system. There isn't a decision to do these things. You've muscle memoried yourself into when the dog is misbehaving, step away from where you're at and getting control of your dog. Okay, that's training.
Right.
So that's familiar with a lot of our audience. It's just a do. It's not a decide I'm going to go over here. It's I need to get the damn dog over here and get this resolved. Like, why are you pulling on me? And you
Right.
might be screaming at the dog. That's
Right.
okay. Joey was trained for this.
Right.
So the first command, Joey would look away. He would not listen to me, and he'd drive that limbic system up. Like, so now I'm spiking. And I'd be like, Joe, you gotta sit down. So then he would look at me and he would very slowly sit and he'd look away. And then I'd get his attention again and then he would lock in. That process just regained control. And the limbic system says we're good. It doesn't know the crowd's there at this moment
Right. You're
because
focused
you're
on the
stuck
dog.
in, it's focused on that. And the
Right.
dog has now given up its control
Right.
for you to gain control. And the limbic system says we're fine. Now you can turn and say, do I need to leave because I don't need to go back into that. It doesn't matter why. You now get to
Right.
make a decision. You've returned decision making to the forefront. And if you're able to learn enough, you're able to pay attention of when that shift happens. And that's what I do 99% of the time. No
Okay.
one's ever going to get to 100. But I
Okay.
literally can feel the limbic system kick on, and then I know now that I'm in this moment. I'm trying to think my way through it, and I don't have Joey anymore, but I can feel it shift back, and I can get it to engage again because now I'm familiar with the inner workings and what it feels like in these moments, and I've been able to pay attention to it. And
Right.
that student part of me is what I've used more than I have medication. I was able to mostly stay off of Zoloft. I did use it for a couple of years, and I went back on it for a short time about 7 years ago. But I'm just not a big medicator.
That's good.
I if I need it for a crutch, I'll get the crutch. But crutches
Right.
can destroy your back just as fast as
Oh yeah,
injury.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And kudos to you. a
and
lot
it
of
may not
a
be
lot
for
of
everybody.
no, a lot of people they rely on that crutch.
Yeah,
So and it gets them into trouble.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. Because it can
So
you can build you can desensitize yourself to it over time, and
right.
the other ones may not work.
Exactly. So
So
let me
what's your
ask
strategy then?
let me ask you this then. That covers the PTSD side of it. What about the depression and anxiety?
The depression and anxiety, as you learn. So the things that come with my specific flavor of PTSD are depression and anxiety. Suicidal ideation comes around,
Right. Right.
cycles through. Those are just realities. The acceptance of that, like even like the gender dysphoria, is a reliever. Because if you study it enough, even in those dark moments, you know this is temporary. That we're gonna think our way through this. We're gonna navigate this part of the river. And we don't have as much control as we want right now, and that's why we're triggered. But if we just let the current stream along, we're gonna find it again. And we can do things, whatever they are to that individual, that can help alleviate the time it takes to get there. And it may not alleviate the pressure, whether that's calling a buddy, whether it's, getting on PlayStation or Xbox or chilling out or on a computer game. Even if you have to do it for an extended period of time, it's healthier than sitting in this wallowing in something or hurting yourself. It's better than drinking yourself into oblivion. Um, I'm not a huge proponent, nor am I really against the new therapies that are coming out with um, mushrooms and CBD. I'm not against those. I've heard very good things. I'm not
Right.
personally on them. But if that's what it takes to get you through that part of the river, it's better than the much unhealthier alternatives.
Yeah.
That comes through education, not guessing.
Yeah.
And it's not hearsay. It's hearing something and then reading so that your brain can hear it in your voice while you're calm and sane.
Right.
And
That's interesting. 'Cause I'm a big supporter of some of the alternative therapies, simply because I know veterans, uh, and people that are not veterans that have went down those roads and have had success with them.
I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, I've known, quite a few that have, microdose mushrooms and stuff like that
Right.
and had great success with it. I'm hearing good things coming out of all places, the VA
Right.
on Ibogaine.
Correct.
So I'm glad to see that they're finally looking
Me too.
at those other alternatives.
I am too.
So, because, like I said, I know people personally that have used them,
Mhm.
and, they're a lot better people now.
Yeah.
So, I
I
mean,
mean,
there was a time when I would not have agreed with that, but I have met people, I've worked with people that have actually done it, and I've seen the results. So, um,
um, my own research reading, I've seen very good things.
oh yeah,
Um, my sister works in the university hospital system up in Cleveland.
oh yeah,
She has access to other pieces of information
right.
and we share. I won't get any more specific than that, but
Oh, you don't need to.
like she she's also very educated,
Mhm.
driven to be a student and learn
Right,
like I am. So that's just something
right,
we really share. But
yeah,
when I see things and hear things, I don't just dismiss them and I
right,
don't just believe them.
right.
I go and I look and I look and I look and I look and it's not out of skepticism, it's out of
No.
curiosity.
Well,
Like,
and I'm the same way, because the first veteran that I had come to me that, excuse me, had gone down that path, like you, I got curious.
my
And I started researching and checking into it. And I found out that Johns Hopkins University has been doing research on these since the 70s.
yeah.
And I got hold of some of their case studies and stuff, and I started
Mhm.
looking into all that stuff. And I said, wow, there must really be something to this.
Right. Yeah. I
So,
mean, I'm not against them. I just
no,
for me, I what I'm doing now works and when that
and that's
starts to
great.
fail,
Yeah,
I'll adapt. Like
right.
one of the
Well,
things that I tell people, in fact, I reestablished care with a external source of mental health today was, I people don't necessarily know how much I really don't like losing. So
that's the
when
Rakkasan in you.
it is. So when they diagnosed me with PTSD, the first thing I said to a full bird colonel in Germany when he's like, "Yeah, you have PTSD," I was like, "Well, that's great. I don't know what the hell that means, but thanks for the tip." And he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Look, you just used the term that I don't know enough about it to say to
Right,
agree with you. And just because you have a rank and you're a doctor doesn't mean that I do.
right,
But I'll take your advice and I'll research it." And he was like, "Well, that's different." Like, and I did.
mm,
And what I learned was, how many people really have a tough go of it and can
right.
end up suicidal over it. I committed I'm not losing this. Like this is not
That's great.
I've survived enough already. Several being blown up and yeah, we've survived 4 deployments. That this is not what we how we go out. Like
Right.
I
I'm
don't like
glad.
losing and this
I'm
thing's
glad
trying
you
to
got that mindset. I really
yeah.
am.
I see it as PTSD is trying to win, and it tries to find a little way every day,
Right.
and we're not doing that. We have bad days. We
Oh,
do. We
without a
lose
doubt.
days.
Yeah.
I give up days. There's days where it just takes it. Like you can have it, but
Right.
wait till tomorrow. Like,
Right.
like
Right.
um, I'm gonna pick myself up. I'm not doing that.
That's
I've
great.
and
I
if
know.
people want to know, I've had dark, dark moments. I've my one of my safety things. Some people think it's silly and it's disturbing. Is I'll lay in a bathtub so I only have to worry about one aperture. Like I've taken control
I
of my environment. I can get a cold surface, hardened, and I can just sit
I
there.
actually know somebody else that does that.
I just curl up there. If I
Yeah.
fall asleep, great. If I don't, if I
Yeah.
do, I'm gonna wake up hurting a lot. But I will be safe. I will be safe enough to fall asleep and I can regain, whatever anybody's interpretation of his sanity the next day or the next few hours. Like it gets me from point A, bad point, to point
Right.
B, healthier to C, health. Um, and it's not losing. It's giving ground so that you can recollect.
Right.
Like that's all. And you got to have some forgiveness and some sense of humor about it.
Well, I'm tickled to death that you've got that mindset and that outlook, because it's obviously working for you.
I do quite a bit of work on it. People who know me close know that because Joey's gone, I didn't stop. Because I'm going through the transition. The PTSD didn't go away. The
Right.
PTSD has gotten a lot less impactful because of my transition. That's something
Well,
I didn't know was going to happen.
that's amazing.
I didn't
Uh,
know it,
yeah.
but there was a disconnect there
Right.
that was also contributing to not necessarily feeling safe or feeling secure.
Right.
And that makes sense now that I thought about it like in the aftermath, and it was like my PTSD is better, but I have a lot less testosterone to drive these emotional spikes towards anger.
Right.
Um, but it was surprising how little emotional up and down estrogen gave me because everybody was like joking, including me, about I had this wave. It actually mellowed me out to this level of what a lot of people would say is like normalcy, and it made the episodes of PTSD much shorter, and I was able to get past those instead of getting stuck. And
Well,
it was like
let me ask you this. How did that affect your depression?
it made the depression less frequent,
Okay,
easier to
because
think through.
I'm asking because I know people that's just the opposite.
Yeah, I know.
It made it worse.
It made it worse. Yeah. For
So
me, it was a piece of clarity, and I have friends that are the same way. Um, and I don't know, it would be a guess. I'm not a clinician that some
right,
of that is socially driven because I have still have some of those, but because I don't know, I guess because I've studied so much of it and I've become such a student of where my brain is,
right,
I can separate when I'm getting depressed because of a social interaction or lack thereof or awkwardness and depression from my PTSD or just generalized depression. Like
okay,
I can almost see when and why because I'm always paying attention to what set it off.
okay,
That's my biggest thing was always cognitive processing therapy when I was at Campbell all the way to through 2016. I was doing CPT worksheets that everybody knows of why did you get angry, what
right,
happened, what could you have done differently. I've done Jim, I've done thousands of them. So now I do them like I used to do artillery in my head.
right.
I do them very quickly, and I do it with depression. I do it with anxiety. I do it with triggers. I pay attention to it a lot.
That's great.
And if it disrupts something, I apologize and I try to get back to real life. But if I don't give it that moment, it's going to take another one.
Right,
Like that, I've tried it the other way and it doesn't work. Like the ones that sneak up on you are much worse.
right,
So giving it 5 minutes to give some thought and resolve it and get an idea, recognize it, look it in the eye, and then go back to what you're doing is much better than having your legs kicked out from underneath you by some dude who pulled out in front of you. Like,
right. I get it. I get it. Oh wow. So are you going to get another service dog?
I've that's been a topic of discussion. Last night, nothing got heated, but it got tense, and um, she said something not meaning to, but she said something, and it triggered me inside like hard, and I was like, I need to step away. So I did. There was no conflict. I went
Right,
to my office. I gave ground and was just like cooling down. And that's a moment where my dog would be in my lap.
right,
Like that, like he would be there, like keeping me from going to the door, or just protecting me from what he perceived as distress and just comforting me.
right,
So I actually reached out to my ex and she didn't answer, but like she talked to me later. I'm like, I needed a dog. Like she's like, yeah, you do. Like
right,
so I don't know. Right now I'm trying to the commitment of a service dog that people don't understand is the first year or two, you're kind of locked in and
oh
there's
yeah,
you don't want to take any breaks.
right,
And I don't as I walk into this new life exploring me for me now, um, I don't know if I want to be locked in for the next year and
I,
I don't want to renege on the dog either. Like
right, right,
and they got to balance that. And right now I don't know is a no,
right.
right?
But at the same time, you need to also do that balancing act is Do I need that dog?
Right. I'm not there yet. I pay
Right.
attention to it.
Okay.
Um, I can see the benefits. The dog I want, there's an organization locally that has some that I could get into the program within a couple of
Mm-hmm.
weeks right
Right.
now, and I talked to him. Like that was dumb, but I did talk to him.
Well, I'm glad.
Um, and I just until I'm certain that I want to commit that time again, because I've already done it once.
Right.
Um, I can't commit to it, and people said, well, you should foster a dog. I'm like I don't want to give it up. Like I don't. If I get one, I'll know. Everybody knows I'm gonna be stuck with it because like
Right.
I'm gonna. So
Right.
I'm just kind of taking my time right now. I
Okay.
I still have world to explore and things that I'd like to do, and
Right.
I don't want to interfere with that. But if it comes to it, if I have some bad days, I'll probably be like, okay, we're putting some things off. I'm getting a dog again.
Yeah. Well,
Build a
you
fence and
you've got a pretty
go.
good head on your shoulders, so I know you'll do the right thing.
I try. Try. So,
Oh well. Okay. Well, I'll let you get off here and enjoy the rest of your night. But before I let you go, I want to say thank you for my freedom and thank you for everything that you did for both of my sons, because you knew both of them,
I did. I did.
and you actually helped Jimmy quite a bit, from what I understand. And for that, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for being his friend. And before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about or bring up?
No,
Okay.
I'd like to share my piece of what's going on now. What's going on now is, in my opinion, is an embarrassment. It's
I
not
would
who we
agree.
are.
I would agree.
And I feel bad for my ex is a phenomenal airman in the U.S. Air Force. She is a true to form warrior at heart. She would have preferred to be in the Army, that just didn't work out that way.
Right.
She deserves that. She is one of the best of us, and Jim, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And I feel bad that they have to go through what they're going through right now. Like
Oh, I do too. I do too.
there's they what's going on now does not remove the morality of the good people that have to serve and stay true to their commitment.
I agree.
And that puts them in a very unique and awkward position that I fully understand because I feel it as if I was under a contract, and it's abhorrent to me. So thank you for your service. Jimmy was a pleasure to have as a friend. He
I'm sure.
was.
I'm sure. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go.
It's 15/2010. It's approximately 18:30 in the evening here at Forward Operating Base Forest. Please tell me your name and your rank, sir. My name's Corporal Jimmy Robinson. Congratulations, you just got promoted here. First time being promoted away from the States? No, I got promoted to PFC during my first deployment. So this is your second deployment, is that right? Actually, my third. Your third. One in Afghanistan? Yeah, I've done 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. All right, tell me, what's your job? My job, I'm a fire team leader, Alpha team leader under Sergeant Riley. And how old are you, sir? 27. How long have you been in the Army? I've been in a little bit over 5 years. Where do you hail from? Originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. Home of the Bengals, is that right? That's right. I was speaking with Sergeant Riley earlier, and he spoke quite highly of you. You guys look like you have a really tight group here. Yeah, it's we're all really close. We're all pretty good friends across the board. You have family back home? Yeah, I've got a wife and 2 kids back at Fort Campbell. Congratulations, and their names? Thank you. My wife's name's Kate, and my oldest daughter is Emily, and the youngest is Tori. Anything you want to say to them? I love you guys. I miss you. Very good. Corporal Robinson, congratulations on your promotion. All right, thank you very much. And be safe out here. I'll try. It's Jim Sperry, August 15, 2010, at the promotion of Corporal Robinson. Corporal, what's your first name again? It's Jimmy. Jimmy, that's an easy name to remember. My name's Jim. It works, huh? All right, roger that, buddy. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Congratulations.